Ye- Hello, reviewers. A very warm welcome to our channel. It's very good to have you here. In this video, we are going to have a look at the air compressor. The air compressor that is used for a pneumatic brake system. The air compressor is the source of energy for a compressed air brake system, and the required compressed air is produced right in here. When you look at the components of the air compressor, on this second picture, you can see it numbered, but on the actual picture right here we have the cylinder head. We have connection for the inlet, and the discharge will be on this side. And then, as you can see, the body of the air compressor is finned, that is used for cooling purposes. And in here we have a piston. Right here there is a piston that is connected to a crankshaft. This crankshaft is to be connected to the crankshaft through belt. So there will be a pulley on here, or there will be a toothed gear that will be connected to the crankshaft. And once the engine is started, this crankshaft will start to rotate, reciprocating the piston inside the cylinder. Now, when the piston is reciprocating up and down inside the cylinder, it will either generate vacuum or it will cause pressure to exist. Now, when you look at the main principle of operation, when the piston is moving from TDC down to BDC, right here, for example, on this stroke, you can see the intake flap is open. This right here is the intake passage. Compressed air from an air filter will be supplied to this cylinder, and the downward travel of the piston will cause vacuum inside this cylinder. Now that partial vacuum will open the inlet passage and fresh air will be admitted to this chamber. Once the piston has finished its downward travel, then it will begin to come up. The upward motion of the piston will compress the already admitted air and then discharge it to the pneumatic brake system. So when some pressure is developed in here, as the piston starts to move up, volume is diminishing, so that decrease in volume will cause the pressure to increase. That increasing pressure will close the previously open intake valve. It is closed from down to up, and then it will open the discharge valve and then send to the air pressure regulator. So this is basically how the compressor inside the air system operates. Now, in order to lubricate this, it has to be lubricated, the lower part of the crankshaft, because it is supported by bearings at both ends. It has to be lubricated. This is usually lubricated by engine oil supplied from the engine itself. And when it comes to cooling, see these fins on the cylinder and on the cylinder head, those are there to dissipate any heat that will be generated. As air is compressed, the pressure will increase, and so does the temperature. So that increased temperature, it has to be removed. Removal of the heat from the compressor is done by the fins conducting it to the wind that is blowing over the air compressor. So simply speaking, this is how the air compressor operates. And the air compressor, it must be cooled by either the engine fan or other means of cooling. It is usually air cooled, as you can see. And on some air compressors, instead of using a single piston, some massive air compressors, they use double pistons as well. Lubrication must be there. Always ensure it is well lubricated. The lubrication system is usually connected to the engine lubrication circuit so that oil will be fed to the crankshaft bearing, and these cylinder walls are also partially lubricated by engine oil splash. So this is how the air compressor inside the air brake operates. The pistons that are used inside this air compressor are just like a normal engine pistons with the piston rings and connecting rod connected, and they need lubrication for longevity and operation. And if you find out that the compressor is losing its efficiency and not compressing as much, it more probably has to do with wear of the piston rings or the cylinder itself. So just like a low compression in a car engine, that same behavior will be exhibited if the air compressor is running low. Now, there are some things that you can do in order to prolong the service life of your air compressor and care for this air compressor. Because moisture is the number one danger, always make sure that there is no moisture trapped inside the air compressor or inside the pneumatic brake system. The compressor squeezes moisture out of the air along with the air itself. So this water, if it collects somehow inside the air compressor or somewhere in the system, if it is not drained, that can be problematic. So it will corrode parts, it will corrode air reservoir tanks, or if it is left inside the air compressor itself, it will have a negative effect of corroding the parts. So always make sure that the pneumatic brake system is fully drained, and make sure that fresh air that is coming to the air compressor is clean as well. Use the correct oil for lubricating the compressor. The compressor is a hard-working engine-driven pump, so it needs oil that can handle the high temperature and that can handle the moisture that comes with the air itself. So the oil, it has to be a recommended oil by the manufacturer, and it has to be replaced regularly. Some air compressors have their own oil supply where there is oil filler neck to be filled in here. They will have a dipstick and separate oil from the engine. Some are using the engine lubrication system itself. So use only the specified type of oil, and always make sure that the oil level is correct, and change that oil periodically. By doing so, you can prolong the service life of your air compressor as well. And the compressor breathes in air, as we have discussed. It will breathe in air and breathe out air. Now, if the air filter is not correct, or if the air filter on its intake line is clogged, or if it is missing, dirt and dust can enter this. If dirt and debris, anything that can get in here, sucked into the system, this will have an abrasive effect, will have rapid wear on the compressor itself. So dust, any type of dirt that gets sucked into the system will accelerate wear internally. So always make sure that your air compressor is getting filtered air. And in some cases, you should allow the compressor to cycle properly as well. The compressor needs to reach its full operating temperature to boil off any internal moisture that is trapped in here. In order to do that, the compressor should be run for longer period so that it will have enough temperature to burn off and evaporate any moisture that is trapped in here. However, if you are primarily making short trips, you should periodically take longer trips to run and allow the air compressor to reach its operating temperature so that it can fully evaporate any trapped moisture in the system. And if you want to prolong the service life of your air compressor, always follow scheduled maintenance plan. Compressors, like any air dryer, when they work, they need to have filtered air supply, and that air filter has to be regularly replaced, and it has to be cleaned if it is trapped, if it is filled with some sort of dirt. Now, this is some of the things that you can do in order to prolong the service life of your air compressor. Now, what are some of the troubles that are associated with this air compressor? Well, it could be, for example, a slow air pressure buildup. This is one trouble. The air pressure, if the gauge rises slowly, if it is not rising sharp, then that indicates some sort of air is leaking, for example. The most common cause is air leakage. If the compressor is not building up pressure sufficiently, either it is leaking via this piston ring and cylinder wall gap, or the intake valve might have some sludge or carbon buildup and not sitting properly, causing leakage. Anything that can cause leak if the external circuit is also leaking. So the compressor can't build pressure if there is leakage somewhere, if air is escaping elsewhere. So you have to check the entire system with a soapy water solution in order to pinpoint if there are any leakages. And the other thing that can cause the pressure not to build rapidly is if the piston ring is worn, or if the compressor cylinder is worn out. Internal wear reduces the compressor's pumping efficiency. So this is often caused by lack of lubrication or prolonged service. And on some compressors, if the compressor have pumped enough air and the pneumatic system is filled, in order to reduce stress on the compressor and remove some load from the engine, some compressors have unloader mechanism. That unloader mechanism, if it is faulty, if it is stuck partially open, then it constantly bleed off air. The unloader mechanism, usually what it does is it will open a passage that will allow air to escape, and no pressure will be felt as the piston is moving up inside the cylinder. That will help eliminate any back pressure caused by the compressed air, and that will also help to remove some load from the engine crankshaft if the pneumatic system is filled. If the pneumatic pressure reduces, then the unloader mechanism will stop functioning and the compressor will still continue pumping and filling the pneumatic system as well. So faulty unloader mechanism can also cause low pressure if it is constantly bleeding of air, making the compressor work harder for less result. And the other thing that can cause low pressure buildup is if there is clogged air filter. Air that is being fed to the compressor, it has to flow readily. If the compressor is being choked, if it is unable to get enough air to compress, that can also cause the air compressor to build up pressure very slowly. The other thing that can happen is if the compressor is not feeling any pressure at all. This is indication of severe air leak, major line or hose disconnect or burst that can cause totally zero pressure to build up. And broken compressor drive. This drive, the crankshaft or the pulley that is going to drive, if there is some discontinuity there, then there will be zero pressure. And if the unloader valve is stuck fully open, that will also prevent pressure buildup. That will prevent compression in here. So that will cause zero pressure discharge as well. And internal component failure. It could be a broken connecting rod, somehow a broken crankshaft. Any sort of internal damage can also prevent the compressor from building pressure as well. There are some cases where the compressor overpressurizes. This is when it is continuously running. If the compressor runs without stopping or without any cutout, then that is also a sign of trouble. Once the pneumatic system is filled up, it has to cut out. If that is not the case, that is an indication of a trouble as well. Continuously operating compressor, continuously pumping could indicate problem with an unloader mechanism. If the unloader valve is stuck, for example, if it is stuck in the load position, not releasing pressure from the compressor head, that can cause the compressor to continuously pump and over compress. And the other problem is if there is excessive oil inside the compressed air. This is also a sign of trouble. This is usually caused by worn out piston rings. The piston ring, if they wear out or if the cylinder of the compressor is worn out, this will allow excessive engine oil from the crankcase of the air compressor to be pumped into this high pressure chamber and then removed with the air. So if you find out that there is lots of oil mixed with the compressed air, that indicates the compressor piston ring and cylinder is worn out. Clogged air compressor breather tube can also be a culprit. The crankshaft cannot vent properly. It will force oil past the piston rings into the compression chamber as well. And the other thing that can cause oil to mix in here is if there is oil overheating. Too much oil in the compressor will lead to it being forced out. So those are some of the things that can cause oil to mix with the compressed air, and that is also a sign of trouble. If you find out excessive moisture after drainage tank, if you find out there is excessive moisture, that is also a sign of trouble. If you constantly find large amount of water in the air tank, even when draining them daily, that is also a sign of trouble. This is usually caused by failed air dryer. Air dryer has to supply moisture-free air, and if the purge valve is not working properly, if it is stuck, that can also cause excessive moisture presence in the compressed air. Frequent short trip can also be a blame. We've said earlier, the compressor has to attain its operating temperature once in a while so that it can readily remove any moisture. Now, if the air system never gets hot enough to evaporate moisture effectively, that can also make large amount of moisture to be mixed with the compressed air. And the other thing is, obviously, where you use it. If it is a very humid operating environment, that can also be a cause. Operating in highly humid area with naturally put more water into the system, stressing the air dryer. So these are some of the things that can cause excessive moisture inside the system as well. So the golden rule for prolonging the service life of your air compressors: always drain the tanks every day. Make sure that the pneumatic system is moisture free, and use the correct oil for your compressor, and always make sure that sufficient oil is available. Check oil level regularly, and if there are any leaks, fix air leaks immediately and service the air dryer annually. Listen for any unusual sound. If you hear knocking sound, grinding noise, then address them immediately. Proper maintenance of your air brake compressor isn't just about vehicle upkeeping, it's a fundamental part of road safety, and for you and everyone traveling with you and everyone using the road, that is a safety procedure to be followed. By doing so, you can prolong the service life of your air compressor, and you can also have a dependable braking system as a result. In order to repeat the principle of operation of the air compressor, this is how it operates. As the piston retracts, the intake valve opens, allowing air to enter into the cylinder. Now, during this downward stroke, vacuum will be generated because piston is withdrawing itself from the cylinder, increasing volume. Now, when volume increases in this closed chamber, as the piston is moving away, partial vacuum will be generated and that will suck air. Filtered air has to be supplied. Always make sure that the compressor has an air filter installed, or it should be directed from the main air filter of the car engine. Filtered air will be supplied to this cylinder. Now, as the piston reaches the bottom dead center, it will start to move up again. The upward motion of this will reduce the volume. Now, the already admitted in air will be trapped in here, and as piston advances moving up towards the cylinder head direction, that will cause pressure to increase. Increased pressure will open the discharge valve, and compressed air under high pressure will be supplied to the air pressure regulator. So this is simply how it is operated. Well, dear viewers, that is all we have for you regarding the construction, principle of operation, and some troubles associated with the compressor, and some of the things that you can do in order to prolong the service life of your air compressor. If you find this video helpful and if you like what has been presented, please do smash the like button. If you are new to this channel, do consider subscribing. Turn on notifications so that you will be the first to get notified whenever we come up with another video. Until then, stay safe.